Welcome, sleepy wanderer of the wasteland, to a journey through one of history's most complex and troubling tales. Tonight, we're going to explore the complete saga of Vault-Tec Corporation, from its hopeful beginnings as humanity's supposed savior to its dark transformation into something far more sinister. This is a story of ambition and betrayal, of corporate greed masked as patriotic duty, of experiments that would make even the most hardened soul shudder in the darkness. So settle in, make yourself comfortable, and let your mind drift as we traverse the decades together. We'll walk through gleaming corporate boardrooms where executives planned the future of humanity with cold calculation. There's no need to remember every detail. Just let the story wash over you like the gentle hum of a vault's air recycling system, steady and constant in the quiet night. Close your eyes when you're ready, and let the steady rhythm of history carry you into peaceful slumber as we explore every contract, every construction, and every terrible secret of Vault-Tec Corporation. Our story begins in the year 2031, in an America that gleams with chrome and possibility but trembles with underlying fear. The morning sun rises over cities of tomorrow, where nuclear-powered cars glide silently down pristine streets and robot butlers serve breakfast in suburban homes. Yet beneath this atomic age optimism, shadows gather like storm clouds on a summer day. The world of 2031 exists in a delicate balance of power and paranoia. The resource wars have been raging for years as nations struggle over the planet's dwindling oil reserves. America's relationship with China grows more strained with each passing month, diplomatic cables growing shorter and military budgets growing larger. In the halls of Congress, senators debate not whether conflict will come, but when and how devastating it will be. It is into this atmosphere of gleaming progress and gathering darkness that Vault-Tec Corporation is born. The company's founding occurs not in some dramatic moment of inspiration, but in the quiet offices of a Los Angeles industrial complex, where a group of forward-thinking executives recognize opportunity in the growing national anxiety. These men, and they are all men in those days, see profit in protection, wealth in the world's worries. The initial corporate charter, filed with the state of California on a crisp October morning, describes Vault-Tec's mission in language both grandiose and vague. They will be, according to these documents, purveyors of protective technologies for the atomic age, and architects of America's underground future. The real meaning behind these flowery phrases is simpler. They will build bunkers for those who can afford them, shelters for a population increasingly convinced that the unthinkable might actually happen. The founding board consists of industrialists who have already made fortunes in related fields. Stanislaw Braun brings expertise in construction and a reputation for completing projects on time and under budget. Albert Greenway contributes connections in Washington and a silver tongue that can make senators see patriotism where others might see profiteering. Thomas Morrison provides the technical knowledge, having spent years designing hardened facilities for the military. These men meet in Morrison's office on the 15th floor of the Sunset Towers, the city sprawling below them like a circuit board of light and possibilities. They smoke cigars and drink whiskey as they discuss the future, not just their company's future, but humanity's. They speak of survival rates and construction costs with equal passion, calculating profit margins alongside radiation exposure times. The transformation from concept to corporation happens with surprising speed. Within weeks of that first meeting, Vault-Tec has offices, employees, and most importantly, a vision that resonates with an anxious nation. Their early promotional materials, preserved in archives that would survive even nuclear fire, paint a picture of American ingenuity conquering the atom's dark potential. "Why merely fear the future?" asks one early advertisement, "when you can master it?" The image shows a family of 4, father, mother, son, and daughter, smiling as they descend into a gleaming vault entrance. The vault door behind them is massive, but somehow comforting, a steel embrace protecting them from an uncertain world. This image, variations of which would appear on billboards and magazines across America, captures the essential Vault-Tec promise: normalcy preserved through technology. The company's first employees are a mixture of idealists and opportunists. Young engineers fresh from university, filled with dreams of building a better tomorrow, work alongside seasoned construction workers who see steady paychecks in uncertain times. The corporate culture that develops blends military efficiency with startup enthusiasm, creating an atmosphere where 16-hour days are common and questioning company direction is not. Initial funding comes from private investors who share the founder's vision of profitable paranoia. But Vault-Tec's leaders understand that real success requires government backing. They need contracts, legitimacy, and most of all, access to the resources that only federal authority can provide. This begins a courtship of Washington that will ultimately transform both the company and the nation. The early demonstrations of Vault technology are carefully orchestrated affairs. Journalists are invited to witness blast tests where scaled models of Vault-Tec shelters survive explosions that obliterate conventional structures. Military observers nod approvingly as they tour prototype facilities equipped with air filtration systems that can screen out radioactive particles. Each demonstration is meticulously planned to impress, without revealing the full scope of Vault-Tec's ambitions. By the end of 2031, Vault-Tec has grown from 3 men with an idea to a corporation with over 200 employees and facilities in 3 states. They have yet to build a single full-scale vault, but the foundation is laid for what will become the most ambitious construction project in human history. As the year ends and 2032 begins, the pieces are in place for Vault-Tec's transformation from a small defense contractor to an architect of human survival, or human experimentation, depending on one's perspective. The year 2032 dawns with Vault-Tec executives making pilgrimages to Washington, D.C., briefcases full of proposals and hearts full of ambition. The nation's capital in this era is a curious mixture of classical architecture and atomic age additions. Marble monuments sharing skylines with gleaming steel towers powered by fusion reactors. It is here, in wood-paneled offices and exclusive clubs, that Vault-Tec's future will be determined. The first significant meeting occurs on a snow-dusted February morning in the Pentagon. Assistant Secretary of Defense Bradley Cunningham, a man whose sharp eyes miss nothing and whose connections run deep, reviews Vault-Tec's proposals with interest that he tries to hide behind bureaucratic indifference. The documents before him outline shelters that could preserve not just lives, but entire slices of American civilization. Libraries, laboratories, even small manufacturing facilities, all protected beneath tons of earth and steel. What Cunningham sees, and what he conveys to his superiors in carefully worded memos, is potential beyond mere civilian shelters. These vaults could preserve military assets, protect continuity of government, and ensure that American power survives even the unthinkable. His recommendation, stamped, classified, and filed in folders that would one day burn with everything else, is enthusiastic endorsement with certain condition. The negotiations that follow are complex dances of promise and possibility. Vault-Tec wants funding and authority. The government wants control and capability. Compromises are reached in stages, each contract building upon the last, each success opening doors to greater opportunities. The company agrees to military oversight of certain facilities in exchange for access to military-grade construction materials. They accept security clearance requirements for key personnel in return for information about projected threat scenarios. By summer, Vault-Tec has secured its first major contract, a feasibility study for a network of shelters capable of protecting essential government personnel and selected civilian populations. The language is carefully chosen, vague enough to allow flexibility but specific enough to justify substantial funding. The contract value, $50 million, represents more money than the company's founders had dared dream of just a year before. But money is only part of what Vault-Tec gains from these early relationships. They receive access to classified research on radiation effects, blast damage, and psychological responses to confined living. They're introduced to other contractors working on related projects, creating a web of connections that will prove invaluable. Most importantly, they gain legitimacy, the government's imprimatur that transforms them from ambitious entrepreneurs to partners in national defense. As Vault-Tec grows in size and influence, its public message crystallizes around a powerful central theme: the preservation of humanity itself. This vision, crafted in brainstorming sessions and refined by marketing experts, proves irresistibly compelling to a population living under the shadow of atomic annihilation. The company's publicists work tirelessly to position Vault-Tec not as merchants of fear, but as guardians of hope. Their vaults aren't tombs for the dying world, but wombs for the world to come. Preserving today for tomorrow becomes their slogan, appearing on everything from construction helmets to congressional testimony. The message is clear: Vault-Tec isn't just building shelters, they're safeguarding the future of human civilization. This vision manifests in increasingly elaborate demonstrations and exhibitions. At the 2033 World's Fair, Vault-Tec's pavilion features a full-scale mock-up of a vault entrance, complete with the massive gear-shaped door that would become their iconic symbol. Visitors can tour recreation areas where families play board games beneath artificial sunlight, hydroponics labs where fresh vegetables grow in perfect rows, and dormitories where beds are arranged with military precision but softened with colorful blankets. The darker implications of preserving humanity remain carefully hidden from public view. In secure boardrooms, executives discuss what percentage of genetic diversity is necessary to repopulate after a nuclear exchange. They debate whether certain populations are more worth saving than others. They commission studies on how to maintain social order in confined spaces for extended periods. These conversations, recorded in minutes that are immediately classified, reveal a vision of preservation that is as much about control as survival. Educational initiatives reinforce Vault-Tec's message at every level of society. The company sponsors essay contests in schools, asking children to imagine their lives in vaults. They fund university research into sustainable closed-system living. They provide educational materials to civil defense organizations, materials that subtly promote Vault-Tec as the only serious solution to nuclear threat. Each initiative builds public acceptance of a future where vault living isn't just possible, but inevitable. The vision extends beyond mere survival to encompass the preservation of American values and way of life. Vault-Tec's promotional materials emphasize that their facilities will maintain democracy, free enterprise, and traditional family structures, even in the aftermath of atomic war. They promise that vault dwellers will emerge not as mere survivors, but as inheritors, ready to rebuild America in its original image, or at least the idealized image that Vault-Tec's marketing department has crafted. The men who guide Vault-Tec through its formative years are fascinating studies in ambition, genius, and moral flexibility. Each brings unique talents to the corporation, and each leaves indelible marks on its culture and direction. Understanding these individuals is essential to understanding how a company founded on protecting humanity could become complicit in its potential destruction. Stanislav Braun, the construction magnate turned vault designer, is perhaps the most complex of the founders. A Polish immigrant who arrived in America with nothing but ambition, he built his fortune by delivering what others deemed impossible. His colleagues describe him as brilliant but cold, a man who sees human beings as variables in engineering equations. His obsession with creating perfect closed systems extends beyond professional interest to something approaching mania. Braun's contributions to vault design go far beyond simple construction. He pioneers the psychological architecture that makes extended vault living possible, the careful use of space to prevent claustrophobia, the subtle color schemes that maintain mental equilibrium, the acoustic engineering that prevents the maddening effects of mechanical noise. But his interests increasingly turn to how environmental control can shape human behavior, leading to design elements that serve purposes beyond mere comfort. Albert Greenway presents a different face of Vault-Tec leadership. Where Braun is technical, Greenway is political. His talent lies not in building vaults, but in building relationships, creating the network of influence that allows Vault-Tec to operate with minimal oversight. He knows every senator's weakness, every general's ambition, every bureaucrat's price. His parties at his Virginia estate become legendary, places where deals are struck over brandy and cigars, where the future of America is negotiated between courses of an elaborate dinner. But Greenway is more than a mere influence peddler. He genuinely believes in American exceptionalism and sees Vault-Tec as a means of ensuring that American values survive any catastrophe. His vision of preserved humanity is specifically preserved American humanity, a distinction that becomes increasingly important as Vault-Tec's projects grow in scope. He advocates for vaults that don't just shelter bodies but indoctrinate minds, ensuring that emerging populations will be properly American in thought and deed. Thomas Morrison, the technical genius of the trio, approaches vault construction with the methodical precision of a master watchmaker. Every system must have redundancies, every redundancy must have backups, every backup must be tested to failure and beyond. His notebooks, filled with equations and diagrams that few others can understand, become the technical bibles of Vault-Tec engineering. Morrison's perfectionism drives innovations that make long-term vault habitation possible. He develops water recycling systems that achieve 99.9% efficiency, air filtration that can run for centuries with minimal maintenance, and power systems that tap geothermal energy with unprecedented reliability. But his focus on technical perfection sometimes blinds him to human factors, leading to designs that work flawlessly on paper but create unexpected problems when inhabited by actual people. These three men are supported by a growing cadre of executives and specialists, each adding their own ambitions and ideas to Vault-Tec's expanding vision. Dr. Constance Wells joins as chief psychologist, bringing expertise in confined population dynamics that proves both valuable and disturbing. Colonel James Fitzgerald, recruited from military intelligence, establishes security protocols that ensure Vault-Tec's secrets remain secret. Chantrawiz makes secrecy reveal secret. Together, they form a leadership team capable of transforming abstract visions into concrete reality. The decade of the 2040s opens with Vault-Tec ascending from promising government contractor to industrial giant. The world beyond America's borders grows more unstable with each passing year. The European Commonwealth dissolves in bitter recrimination, the Middle East burns through the last of its oil reserves, and China's growing power creates friction across the Pacific. Each international crisis sends Vault-Tec's stocks soaring and their order books swelling. The company's headquarters in Los Angeles expands from a single building to an entire campus. Glass and steel towers rise like monuments to atomic anxiety, their clean lines and modern architecture suggesting a future where such buildings might be all that remains of human achievement. The executive floors feature windows specially treated to filter radiation, a bit of theatrical preparation that impresses visitors and reminds employees of their essential mission. Production facilities spread across the nation like a slow-growing infection of industry. The main plant in Nevada covers square miles of desert, its assembly lines running day and night to fabricate the massive gear-shaped doors that have become Vault-Tec's signature. Subsidiary facilities in Pennsylvania produce life support systems. In Texas, they manufacture power plants. In Oregon, they create the sophisticated computer systems that will manage Vault operations. Each facility is a marvel of efficiency, turning raw materials into the components of survival. The workforce swells from hundreds to thousands, to tens of thousands. Vault-Tec becomes one of America's largest employers, offering good wages and better benefits to those willing to sign comprehensive non-disclosure agreements. Company towns spring up around major facilities, places where Vault-Tec currency is accepted at company stores, and children attend company schools. These communities, with their ordered streets and identical houses, serve as above-ground prototypes for the societies that will eventually exist below. But expansion brings challenges beyond mere logistics. As Vault-Tec grows, it attracts scrutiny from journalists, activists, and competing corporations. Questions arise about the selection process for Vault placement, about the criteria for resident selection, about what exactly happens behind the classified doors of certain facilities. The company's public relations department, now a small army in itself, works constantly to manage the message, to maintain the image of benevolent protector, even as darker truths accumulate in locked filing cabinets. In the 2050s, see Vault-Tec's influence extend into every aspect of American life. Their advertisements appear during every commercial break. Their representatives speak at every civil defense meeting. Their educational materials shape how children think about the future. The Vault door logo becomes as recognizable as any corporate symbol in history, a sign that means safety to some and inevitability to others. Vault-Tec's marketing department operates from a sleek office tower in Manhattan, where some of the brightest minds in advertising work to sell the unsellable, a future where their products are necessary. The campaigns they create walk a delicate line between promoting preparedness and inciting panic, between selling safety and acknowledging catastrophe. The Prepare for the Future campaign of 2051 becomes a case study in effective messaging. Television commercials show happy families practicing Vault drills with the same cheerful enthusiasm as fire drills. Children wear miniature Vault suits as Halloween costumes. The message is clear. Preparing for nuclear war is simply responsible citizenship, as normal as buying insurance or getting vaccinated. Celebrity endorsements add glamour to the grim subject matter. Movie stars pose next to Vault doors, their perfect smiles suggesting that atomic survival can be achieved without mussing one's hair. Sports heroes tour Vault facilities, pronouncing them championship-quality shelters. Even the president appears in carefully orchestrated photo opportunities, inspecting Vault construction and nodding approvingly at Vault-Tec's preparations for preserving American democracy. But the most effective marketing happens at the grassroots level. Vault-Tec representatives, clean-cut and earnest, speak at Rotary clubs and PTA meetings across the nation. They bring scale models and colorful charts explaining how local vaults will protect local families. They emphasize community continuity. Your neighbors in life will be your neighbors in the vault. They distribute pamphlets with titles like Your New Underground Home and Atomic Safety for the Whole Family. The company's traveling exhibition, featuring a full-scale vault replica that can be assembled in city centers, draws massive crowds everywhere it goes. Families wait in lines that stretch around blocks for the chance to experience vault living for 15 minutes. Inside, cheerful guides explain how the hydroponic gardens work, demonstrate the entertainment systems, and let children try on miniature vault suits. Guest books fill with comments ranging from "can't wait" to "hope we never need it." Public perception of Vault-Tec during this golden age is generally positive, though undercurrents of unease run beneath the surface. Polls show that most Americans view the company as a necessary evil, a reminder of dark possibilities, but also a comfort that someone is preparing for them. Vault-Tec's favorable rating consistently exceeds that of Congress, the military, and most other major corporations. They have successfully positioned themselves as capitalism's answer to atomic anxiety. In 2053, Vault-Tec launches what will become their most ambitious and influential public relations campaign, the Better Living Underground initiative. This multifaceted program aims to fundamentally shift public perception of vault life from emergency measure to lifestyle upgrade. The campaign's audacity lies in its core message, that life in a Vault-Tec shelter might actually be preferable to life on the surface. The initiative begins with a series of glossy magazines delivered free to millions of American homes. Better Living Underground monthly features articles like Decorating Your Vault Quarters in Style and Gourmet Cooking with Preserved Ingredients. The photography is lush and inviting. Vault common areas that look like luxury hotel lobbies, dining facilities that could be fine restaurants, recreational spaces that rival country clubs. The message is seductive. Why merely survive when you can thrive? Vault-Tec partners with leading furniture designers to create lines specifically for vault living. Space-efficient yet stylish becomes the watchword, as major department stores dedicate entire floors to vault furnishings. The styles emphasize clean lines and durability, but with enough variety to allow personal expression. Children's furniture painted in bright primary colors makes the prospect of raising families underground seem not just possible but pleasant. The company establishes Vault Life Experience Centers in major cities, where potential residents can spend weekends living in simulated vault conditions. Unlike the traveling exhibition's brief tours, these centers allow for extended stays. Families check in on Friday evening and emerge Sunday afternoon, having experienced everything from vault cuisine to entertainment options. The centers are carefully designed to highlight positives while minimizing negatives. The recycled air smells faintly of pine. The artificial lighting mimics natural daylight cycles. The background hum of machinery is masked by soothing music. Educational programs targeting different demographics reinforce the initiative's messages. For housewives, classes on underground homemaking teach everything from hydroponic gardening to maintaining family morale in confined spaces. For men, Vault leadership seminars emphasize their roles as protectors and providers in the enclosed environment. Children attend future Vault citizens camps where they learn skills and attitudes conducive to underground living through games and activity. The psychological reshaping extends to language itself. Vault-Tec's communications consistently use positive terminology. Vaults have communities, not populations. Residents, not inhabitants. Neighborhoods, not sectors. The gear-shaped doors are portals to preservation, not barriers to the outside. This linguistic engineering subtly shifts how people think about vault life, making it seem less like imprisonment and more like pioneering. Within Vault-Tec's expanding empire, a unique corporate culture develops, one that blends patriotic fervor with corporate ambition, scientific innovation with moral flexibility. The employees who power this massive enterprise are as varied as America itself, each bringing their own hopes, fears, and rationalizations to their work in preparing for the end of the world. At the executive level, the culture is one of refined paranoia. Vice presidents and department heads gather for meetings in conference rooms swept daily for listening devices, discussing projections and preparations with the casual professionalism of any major corporation. They speak of demographic optimization when deciding which populations to save, of social dynamics testing when planning experiments, of resource allocation efficiency when determining who lives and who dies. The language sanitizes horror into bureaucracy. Middle management operates in a strange twilight between knowledge and ignorance. They know enough to understand that Vault-Tec's mission extends beyond simple preservation, but not enough to grasp the full scope of what they're enabling. Regional managers overseeing vault construction pride themselves on meeting deadlines and staying under budget, choosing not to question why certain vaults have unusual specifications or require special clearances. They focus on their small pieces of the puzzle, finding comfort in compartmentalization. The engineers and technicians who design and build the vaults represent perhaps the most conflicted group within Vault-Tec. Many joined the company with genuine idealism, believing they were contributing to humanity's survival. They poured their creativity and expertise into solving technical challenges, how to maintain genetic diversity in small populations, how to recycle air for centuries, how to prevent psychological breakdown in confined spaces. Yet they cannot entirely ignore the implications of some designs, the purposes behind certain specifications. Sarah Chen, a systems engineer at the Nevada facility, exemplifies these conflicts. Her personal journal, discovered years later in the ruins of her apartment, records her growing unease. Designed new water chip configuration today, one entry reads. Increased efficiency by 12%. Manager seemed pleased but wouldn't say which vault it's for. The secrecy is getting to me. Later entries grow darker. Overheard discussion about control vaults versus experimental vaults. When I asked for clarification, was told it's above my clearance. What are we really building? The construction crews, many of them tough men drawn from mining and industrial backgrounds, develop their own culture of practical fatalism. They work with dangerous materials in dangerous conditions, building shelters for an atomic war they're increasingly certain is coming. Gallows humor becomes their coping mechanism. They place bets on which cities will be hit first, joke about the guaranteed job security of building for the apocalypse, and drink heavily in the bars that spring up around construction sites. But perhaps the most poignant stories come from the lower levels of Vault-Tec's hierarchy, the secretaries who type reports they're not allowed to read, the janitors who clean offices where world-ending decisions are made, the cafeteria workers who serve meals to people planning humanity's future. They are cogs in a machine whose purpose they only dimly understand, going about their daily routines while helping to build doomsday. Vault-Tec's growth during the Golden Age isn't achieved in isolation. The company builds a complex web of partnerships with other major corporations, creating a military-industrial complex that profits from preparation for catastrophe. These relationships, built on mutual benefit and shared secrets, become crucial to Vault-Tec's ability to deliver on its ambitious promises. The partnership with Robco Industries proves particularly fruitful. Robert House's company, already famous for its revolutionary robotics, provides the artificial intelligence systems that will manage vault operations. The collaboration goes deeper than simple procurement. Teams of engineers from both companies work together to create customized solutions for vault automation. Robco's Protectrons are modified for vault security, their Mr. Handys adapted for maintenance in confined spaces, their terminals programmed with specialized vault management software. The relationship benefits both companies enormously. Robco gains access to Vault-Tec's massive government contracts and sealed environment testing facilities. Vault-Tec acquires cutting-edge technology that would take years to develop internally. But the partnership also creates dependencies and shared culpabilities. Robco's systems become integral to vaults whose true purposes they may not fully understand. Westtec's involvement brings military-grade technology to Vault-Tec's civilian shelters. The defense contractor, known for its work on powered armor and energy weapons, provides security systems that can repel any conceivable threat. Their collaboration extends to biological research, with Westtec's expertise in radiation resistance and genetic modification contributing to Vault-Tec's more ambitious projects. The exact nature of these contributions remains classified at the highest levels. Smaller partnerships proliferate like spiderwebs across the industrial landscape. Prometheus Coal provides energy solutions for vaults built in coal-rich regions. Nuka-Cola Corporation ensures that America's favorite beverage will be available even after nuclear war, signing exclusive distribution agreements for vault facilities. Even seemingly unrelated companies find ways to profit. A toy manufacturer creates Vault Boy merchandise. A pharmaceutical company develops long-term storage solutions for medications. A media conglomerate produces educational films for vault orientation. These corporate relationships create an ecosystem of mutual dependence and shared secrecy. Board members serve on multiple companies, ensuring coordination at the highest levels. Technology and expertise flow between organizations, sometimes through official channels, sometimes through informal networks of engineers and scientists who share more than their employers might prefer. Industrial espionage becomes commonplace, though it's often unclear whether information is being stolen or deliberately leaked. The partnership network also serves to diffuse responsibility for Vault-Tec's darker activities. When questioned about ethical concerns, executives can point to the involvement of respected corporations, arguing that such widespread participation validates their mission. The shared culpability creates a form of mutually assured silence. No company can expose Vault-Tec secrets without implicating themselves. On a crisp autumn morning in 2054, Vault-Tec's executives gather with government officials and media representatives for what will be remembered as one of the most significant announcements in pre-war history. The setting is carefully chosen, the steps of the Capitol building, with American flags fluttering in the background and the dome rising majestically above. Everything about the scene is designed to convey patriotism, permanence, and protection. CEO Albert Greenway, now silver-hailed but still commanding, approaches the podium with practiced gravitas. The speech he delivers has been crafted by the finest writers, reviewed by government censors, and tested on focus groups. Each word is chosen for maximum impact, each pause calculated for effect. "My fellow Americans," he begins, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd. "Today we announce a partnership between American industry and American government that will ensure American survival. Project Safe House, as the initiative is named, represents the formal collaboration between Vault-Tec and the federal government to construct a nationwide network of atomic shelters. The numbers Greenway announces are staggering: 122 vaults to be built across the nation, each capable of housing up to 1,000 residents, all to be completed within 20 years. The total cost, partially subsidized by government funding, exceeds the entire defense budget of most nations. The technical specifications shared with the public are impressive, yet carefully sanitized. Each vault will be a marvel of engineering, buried deep enough to survive direct nuclear strikes, equipped with geothermal power that can run for centuries, featuring water and air recycling systems that approach total efficiency. The vaults will have medical facilities equal to major hospitals, educational systems to ensure knowledge preservation, and recreational amenities to maintain morale during extended habitation. What Greenway doesn't mention are the classified appendices to Project Safe House, the documents that outline the true purposes behind many of the vaults. He speaks of preserving American democracy, but not of the social experiments designed to test its limits. He promises safety for vault residents, but not that some vaults are designed to fail in specific ways. He emphasizes random selection for vault placement, but not that locations have been chosen for experimental variety rather than population protection. The public reaction is immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Newspapers run headlines like "America prepares for peace through strength" and "Voltec offers hope in atomic age." Stock markets soar on the news, with Vault-Tec shares reaching all-time highs and partner corporations seeing similar gains. Citizens flood Vault-Tec offices with inquiries about vault reservations, willing to pay any price for guaranteed spots. But in secure government facilities and corporate boardrooms, different conversations take place. Military strategists discuss which vaults will preserve command structures. Scientists debate experimental parameters for testing everything from radiation exposure to social isolation. Intelligence officials identify vaults suitable for preserving classified materials and personnel. The public Project Safe House is merely the visible portion of a much larger and darker iceberg. The logistical challenge of constructing 122 underground cities within 2 decades would seem impossible to any rational observer. Yet Vault-Tec, flush with government funding and driven by increasingly urgent projections about international stability, approaches the task with methodical determination. The construction timeline they develop becomes a masterwork of project management, even as its true purposes remain hidden from most participants. Phase 1, covering 2054 through 2058, focuses on site selection and initial excavation. Teams of geologists, engineers, and military advisors traverse the nation, identifying locations that meet both public criteria and classified requirements. They seek stable geological formations that can withstand nuclear bombardment, access to underground water sources, and proximity to population centers, or in some cases, deliberate isolation from them. The excavation process itself becomes an industry unto itself. Massive boring machines, specially designed by Vault-Tec engineers, carve through solid rock at unprecedented speeds. The removed material, millions of tons of rock and earth, must be disposed of discreetly to avoid revealing vault locations. Some is used in surface construction projects, some is dumped in designated areas, and some simply disappears into classified military projects. Phase 2, from 2058 to 2065, sees the installation of basic infrastructure. This is when the vaults transform from holes in the ground to potential habitats. The massive gear-shaped doors, each weighing several tons and machined to tolerances measured in fractions of inches, are installed first. Behind them, construction crews build the skeletal structures that will house living quarters, common areas, and essential systems. The complexity of this phase cannot be overstated. Each vault requires miles of plumbing, electrical conduits, and ventilation ducts. The systems must be not just functional but maintainable by vault residents who may have limited technical expertise. Everything must be built to last centuries with minimal replacement parts. The quality control standards exceed those of nuclear submarines or space stations because unlike those environments, there will be no possibility of outside rescue if systems fail. Phase 3, from 2065 to 2070, involves the installation of specialized systems and experimental apparatus. This is when the Vault's individual characteristics emerge. Vault 13 receives standard equipment but with deliberately limited spare parts. Vault 11 gets its automated overseer selection system. Vault 12's door is designed to not close properly. Each deviation from standard design is carefully documented in files that few will ever see. The final phase, from 2070 to the war in 2077, focuses on stocking and final preparations. Food supplies rated for decades of storage are delivered in unmarked trucks. Medical equipment, educational materials, and entertainment options are installed. The vaults are tested, retested, and tested again. Emergency drills are conducted with selected populations, though none are told that some emergencies are deliberately engineered to study responses. Throughout the construction timeline, Vault-Tec maintains multiple sets of books. The public records show steady progress toward humanitarian goals. The classified records reveal a more complex truth, that the 122 vaults represent 122 experiments in human survival, adaptation, and manipulation. Some vaults are indeed controls designed to function as advertised. Others are variables in a vast experimental matrix that treats human lives as data points. The technical achievements involved in vault construction push the boundaries of human engineering. Each vault represents a closed ecosystem that must sustain life indefinitely, a challenge that makes the Apollo program seem simple by comparison. The engineers and workers who bring these underground cities to life face problems that have never been solved before, often developing innovations that would have peaceful applications if the world were not sliding toward war. The vault door mechanisms alone represent triumphs of mechanical engineering. Each multi-ton door must seal perfectly to prevent radiation infiltration, yet be operable by manual controls if power fails. The gear-shaped design, which becomes Vault-Tec's signature, isn't merely aesthetic. The interlocking teeth distribute stress evenly, allowing the massive doors to move smoothly despite their weight. The bearings use materials developed specifically for this application, capable of functioning after centuries of dormancy. Water recycling systems achieve efficiency levels that pre-war engineers thought impossible. Every drop of water in a vault must be captured, cleaned, and returned to circulation. This includes not just obvious sources like sinks and showers, but moisture from human breath, perspiration, and even the minimal water content in solid waste. The purification systems use combinations of mechanical filtration, chemical treatment, and radiation exposure to ensure that water remains safe to drink across multiple generations. Air recycling presents equal challenges. The systems must remove carbon dioxide, replenish oxygen, filter out contaminants, and maintain proper pressure and humidity levels. The engineers develop multi-layer filtration systems using materials ranging from traditional HEPA filters to experimental carbon nanotubes. Backup systems have backups, and those backups have their own redundancies. A vault's air system can lose 70% of its components and still maintain livable condition. Our generation showcases Vault-Tec's partnership with various energy corporations. Most vaults use geothermal systems, tapping into the Earth's heat to generate electricity. The engineering required to install these systems hundreds of feet underground ensure their longevity and make them maintainable by non-specialists, pushes several companies to develop entirely new technologies. Some vaults experiment with alternative power sources, miniaturized fusion reactors, radioisotope generators, even experimental zero-point energy extractors. The construction challenges extend beyond pure engineering to human factors. Workers must operate in confined spaces, often in extreme temperatures, always aware that they're building shelters for a war that seems increasingly inevitable. Accidents are common, despite safety protocols. Cave-ins claim lives, equipment failures cause injuries, and the psychological strain of building for doomsday takes its toll. Vault-Tec's medical teams become experts in treating both physical trauma and mental breakdown. Some challenges arise from the experimental nature of certain vaults. Installing psychological manipulation equipment in Vault 92's white noise systems requires technicians who don't fully understand what they're building. Creating the deliberately flawed water chip for Vault 13 demands engineers willing to build failure into their designs. The workers who install Vault 87's FEV dispensers do so in full hazmat gear, knowing they're handling something dangerous but not comprehending the full implications. As vault construction spreads across the continental United States, regional variations emerge that reflect both practical considerations and experimental parameters. Each area's unique geology, climate, and population characteristics influence vault design in ways both obvious and subtle. These differences, while maintaining Vault-Tec's core engineering standards, create a diverse array of underground habitats that will shape post-war regional development. The vaults of the eastern seaboard, built into the ancient granite of the Appalachian Range, take advantage of natural stability and existing cave systems. These vaults tend to be deeper than their western counterparts, offering better protection from direct strikes, but requiring more complex excavation. The abundant groundwater in the region allows for larger water reserves, but also demands more sophisticated waterproofing. Vault 81 in Boston exemplifies Eastern design philosophy, built into solid bedrock with multiple natural barriers against radiation. Western vaults face different challenges. The desert environments of Nevada and California mean water recycling systems must be even more efficient, as there's no groundwater to tap in emergencies. These vaults often feature larger botanical gardens and more sophisticated hydroponics, compensating for the barren surface environment. The seismic activity along the Pacific coast requires flexible construction techniques. Vaults in these regions use shock-absorbing foundations and segmented designs that can withstand earthquakes that would shatter rigid structures. Midwestern vaults, built beneath the Great Plains, deal with different soil compositions and weather patterns. The tornado-prone regions require special surface structures that can withstand extreme winds, while maintaining vault integrity. These vaults often extend horizontally rather than vertically, spreading across larger underground areas where the geology permits. The agricultural heritage of the region influences their designs. Many feature extensive seed banks and agricultural experiment stations. Southern vaults confront unique challenges from heat and humidity. Even hundreds of feet underground, the regional climate affects temperature regulation and moisture control. These vaults pioneer advanced dehumidification systems and enhanced cooling mechanisms. The cultural differences of the region also influence design. Larger communal spaces for social gatherings, chapels for religious services, and architectural touches that preserve regional identity even underground. The experimental parameters assigned to different regions create additional variations. West Coast vaults tend to receive more radical social experiments, perhaps reflecting the region's reputation for unconventional thinking. Eastern vaults often focus on governance and authority experiments, fitting the region's political significance. Midwestern vaults frequently test resource scarcity and agricultural challenges, while Southern vaults explore social cohesion and cultural preservation. Vacancies and cultural preservation. These regional differences extend to construction methods and workforce composition. Eastern vaults often use unionized labor with strong traditions of industrial construction. Western vaults employ more migrant workers, creating security challenges but also bringing diverse construction techniques. Midwestern projects tap into the region's strong work ethic and community spirit, often completing ahead of schedule. Southern construction sites become melting pots of different traditions and approaches, sometimes leading to innovation, sometimes to conflict. The human stories behind vault construction paint a picture of dedication, desperation, and growing dread as the massive project progresses. Workers from across America converge on construction sites, drawn by good wages, steady work, and perhaps a sense of participating in history. Their testimonials, preserved in company records and personal documents, provide intimate glimpses into the reality of building for the apocalypse. Marcus Thompson, a welder from Detroit, writes to his wife about his work on Vault 88. "The pay is better than anything I've seen since the auto plant started closing. But Mary, there's something unsettling about this place. We're installing equipment that doesn't match the blueprints, and when I asked the foreman about it, he told me to mind my welding torch and forget what I've seen. The overtime is mandatory now. They're pushing us like the bombs are already falling." Jenny Rodriguez, one of the few female engineers on the project, records her experiences in a detailed diary. "Today we installed what they call a social observation system in the residential quarters. Cameras and microphones everywhere, all hidden. When I questioned the privacy implications, my supervisor said it was for post-emergency psychological studies. I'm starting to wonder what kind of emergencies they're really planning for. But the work is fascinating, and I'm learning techniques they don't teach in any university." The accidents that plague construction sites tell their own stories. The cave-in at Vault 39 that claims 12 lives is officially attributed to unforeseen geological instability, but survivors whisper about rushed deadlines and ignored safety warnings. A chemical leak at Vault 19's construction site sends dozens to the hospital with symptoms that don't match any known industrial exposure. The company's medical team treats them and classifies their records, leaving families with questions that will never be answered. Some incidents transcend mere industrial accidents. The entire night shift at Vault 42 disappears without explanation, leaving tools in mid-use and half-eaten meals in the break room. Vault-Tec security cordons off the site for 3 weeks before work resumes, with an entirely new crew. Workers at nearby sites trade theories, government black ops, early Vault experiments, or something worse. The company's official explanation of administrative reorganization satisfies no one, but stops further questions. Labor disputes add another layer of complexity to construction stories. The strike at Vault 77 starts over wage disputes but escalates when workers discover discrepancies between public vault specifications and what they're actually building. The strike ends when Vault-Tec agrees to wage increases and stricter confidentiality agreements. Several strike leaders subsequently fail security reviews and find themselves blacklisted from all Vault-Tec sites. Despite the challenges, many workers express pride in their contributions. Tom Bradley, a concrete specialist, writes, "My grandfather built skyscrapers that touched the clouds. My father built highways that connected the nation. I'm building shelters that might save humanity. It's hard work, dangerous work, and sometimes I wonder about the true purposes." But when I see those massive doors swing closed in testing, sealed tight against whatever hell might come, I know I'm part of something important. As vault construction nears completion and international tensions escalate toward their inevitable conclusion, Vault-Tec faces the delicate challenge of determining who will receive the protection of their underground shelters. The public lottery system they devise represents a masterpiece of social engineering, creating the illusion of fairness while ensuring that vault populations meet specific experimental and preservation criteria. The lottery announcement comes with great fanfare in 2075. Vault-Tec's marketing department presents it as the ultimate expression of American equality. Every citizen has an equal chance at survival, regardless of wealth or status. The advertisements show a spinning drum filled with lottery balls, each representing a family's future. Democracy underground, the campaign proclaims, where every American has an equal chance at tomorrow. The reality is far more complex. While public drawings do occur, complete with television coverage and celebrity hosts, the actual selection process involves multiple hidden layers. First, applicants must pass basic screening. No obvious genetic defects, no criminal records, no political subversion. These requirements eliminate roughly 40% of applicants before the lottery even begins. The screening is presented as necessary for vault harmony, but serves deeper experimental purposes. Behind the scenes, Vault-Tec's computers run sophisticated algorithms that ensure each vault receives its designed population mixture. Vault 69 needs a specific gender ratio. Vault 27 requires subjects with certain psychological profiles. Vault 106 must have residents with artistic tendencies. The lottery is carefully rigged to produce these results while maintaining the appearance of randomness. The application process itself serves as a data-gathering operation. Families fill out extensive questionnaires about their backgrounds, skills, beliefs, and relationships. Medical examinations collect genetic information, psychological evaluations assess personality traits, and background checks verify every claim. This information feeds into vast databases that Vault-Tec scientists use for population planning and experimental design. Wealthier citizens quickly discover that while they cannot simply buy vault spots, they can significantly improve their odds. Vault-Tec offers Preparedness Plus packages that include priority processing, expanded family definitions, and entrance to special lottery pools with better odds. Corporate sponsors can secure blocks of spaces for essential employees. Government officials receive automatic entry for themselves and their family. The egalitarian lottery slowly reveals itself as another system where privilege finds its advantages. Public reaction to lottery results creates its own social dynamics. Families celebrate selection with parties that carry undertones of guilt about neighbors who weren't chosen. Those rejected form support groups that oscillate between hope for future drawings and resentment at the system. Black markets emerge for forged selection documents. Though Vault-Tec's security makes successful fraud nearly impossible, some religious groups declare the lottery divine judgment, while others call it satanic manipulation. Behind the public facade of Project Safehouse lies a web of connections that reaches into the highest levels of American government and industry. The Enclave, a shadow organization composed of wealthy industrialists, military leaders, and government officials, has been guiding Vault-Tec's development from its inception. Their influence transforms what might have been a straightforward survival project into something far more sinister and ambitious. The Enclave's involvement begins even before Vault-Tec's founding. In smoke-filled rooms where America's true power brokers gather, discussions about post-nuclear survival take on dimensions beyond mere preservation. These men, and they are almost exclusively men, see atomic war not as a catastrophe to be prevented, but as an opportunity for transformation. They envision a post-war world where they can rebuild society according to their own designs, free from the messy compromises of democracy. Classified documents that survive hint at the scope of enclave planning. They speak of genetic baselines and social restructuring, of population management and evolutionary guidance. The vaults in this vision are not shelters but laboratories. Their residents are not refugees but test subjects. The experiments are not aberrations but the entire point of the exercise. Every aspect of Vault-Tec's operation has been shaped to serve these hidden purposes. The financial connections between the Enclave and Vault-Tec run deep. Shell companies funnel money through labyrinthine paths that forensic accountants would struggle to trace even if they knew where to look. Government contracts are awarded without competitive bidding, justified by national security concerns that conveniently classify any oversight. Resources flow from military stockpiles to Vault-Tec warehouses through channels that exist in no official records. Key Enclave members hold positions throughout Vault-Tec's hierarchy. They sit on the board of directors, run crucial departments, and oversee the most sensitive projects. Their loyalty is not to Vault-Tec's public mission, but to the Enclave's vision of controlled evolution and societal transformation. They ensure that each vault serves dual purposes, publicly as shelters, secretly as experiments in human engineering. The coordination extends beyond Vault-Tec to its partner corporations. Enclave members guide Robco's AI development to ensure Vault control systems can enforce experimental protocols. They steer West-Tech's biological research toward applications in forced evolution. They influence Nuka-Cola's Vault supply contracts to include addictive variants for certain experiments. The entire military-industrial complex becomes an instrument of the Enclave's design. The true horror of Vault-Tec's mission lies in the comprehensive nature of their experimental protocols. These are not random acts of cruelty, but carefully designed studies intended to provide data for the Enclave's post-war reconstruction plans. Each vault tests specific hypotheses about human nature, social organization, and biological adaptation. The scope and variety of these experiments reveal minds that view human suffering as acceptable collateral in the pursuit of knowledge. The sociological experiments range from subtle to extreme. Some vaults test simple isolation variables. How long can a population remain stable without outside contact? Others explore authority structures. What happens when leadership is randomly assigned, or when it must be obtained through ritualized sacrifice? Social cohesion experiments place incompatible groups together or divide natural allies. Each variable is carefully chosen to illuminate some aspect of human social organization. Vault 11's experiment in democratic sacrifice represents sociological experimentation at its most cruel. Residents must regularly select one among them to die, or the vault's life support will fail. The experiment tests whether the survival instinct will override moral principles, how societies rationalize necessary evils, and what governance structures emerge under extreme moral pressure. The designers show particular interest in how the selection process evolves over generations. Biological experiments push into territory that pre-war ethics boards would never approve. Vault 12's deliberately faulty door exposes residents to measured radiation doses, testing the limits and variations of human radiation adaptation. Vault 22 experiments with genetically modified spores designed to create sustainable food sources, but with unknown effects on human biology. Vault 75 subjects children to extreme physical conditioning to create superior human specimens. Some vaults combine sociological and biological experimentation in ways that multiply the horror. Vault 19 uses subliminal messaging to create paranoid delusions in half its population while leaving the other half unaffected, then observes the resulting conflicts. Vault 92 exposes residents to white noise patterns that gradually induce violent psychosis, testing both the biological effects and social responses to emerging madness. The data collection systems built into each vault are marvels of surveillance technology. Every conversation is recorded, every biometric monitored, every social interaction catalogued. Automated systems track sleep patterns, eating habits, sexual relationships, and group dynamics. The data streams to hidden servers, processed by algorithms that identify significant patterns and anomalies. Vault residents live their entire lives as unwitting participants in experiments they cannot perceive. The experimental protocols extend beyond the vaults themselves. Control vaults provide baseline data for comparison. Surface monitoring stations track the progress of those who never enter vaults, providing information about radiation adaptation and social reconstruction in uncontrolled environments. Even the vault's selection process serves experimental purposes, ensuring that test populations have the characteristics necessary for valid results. The organizational system Voltec develops to classify and track their experiments reveals the cold bureaucracy underlying mass human experimentation. Each category is designated by codes and colors, reducing human suffering to data points in vast spreadsheets. Understanding this classification system provides insight into the minds that conceived these experiments and the systematic nature of their implementation. Category A experiments focus on authority and governance structures. These vaults test different leadership models, from autocracy to democracy to anarchy. Vault 31 experiments with meritocracy taken to extremes, where leadership positions are determined solely by test scores. Vault 43 explores theocracy, with an artificial religion programmed into the vault's education system. Each provides data on stability, productivity, and citizen satisfaction under different governance models. Category B covers biological and medical experimentation. These vaults subject residents to various physical stressors and modifications. Beyond the obvious radiation exposure tests, some vaults experiment with atmospheric composition, gravity simulation, and circadian rhythm disruption. Vault 81's planned disease exposure, thankfully sabotaged by a conscience-stricken scientist, would have provided data on epidemic progression in closed populations. Category C encompasses psychological and cognitive experiments. Vault 92's white noise experiment falls into this category, as does Vault 106's psychoactive drug testing disguised as art therapy. These experiments test the limits of human sanity, the malleability of perception, and the conditions under which minds break or adapt. The data gathered aims to identify optimal psychological conditioning techniques for post-war populations. Category D experiments examine resource scarcity and allocation. Various vaults receive deliberately limited supplies of food, water, or medicine to test rationing behaviors and social breakdown points. Vault 29, populated primarily by children, must develop their own resource management systems without adult guidance. These experiments provide crucial data for managing scarce resources in post-war reconstruction. Category E covers social dynamics and population mixing. Vaults in this category receive populations deliberately selected for conflict potential, different ethnic groups with historical animosity, political extremists from opposing sides, or severe gender imbalances. Vault 68's 1 woman to 999 men ratio represents an extreme example, testing whether social structures can adapt to radical demographic imbalance. Category F, the most classified category, involves direct human enhancement and modification. These vaults move beyond observation to active intervention, using FEV variants, cybernetic implants, and genetic manipulation. The goal is not mere survival, but the creation of improved humans better suited to post-war conditions. The failure rate in these vaults is expected to be high, but the successes could provide templates for humanity's forced evolution. When the true purpose of Project Safehouse is understood in its totality, the scope of the betrayal becomes breathtaking. The American people, trusting their government and corporate leaders to protect them from nuclear annihilation, have instead funded their own transformation into laboratory rats. Every tax dollar allocated to vault construction, every war bond purchased for national defense, contributes to a project designed not to save humanity, but to reshape it according to the Enclave's vision. The preservation of human life, while a necessary component, is actually secondary to data collection. The Enclave needs survivors not out of humanitarian concern, but because dead test subjects provide limited experimental value. The vaults must function well enough to keep residents alive through multiple generations, allowing for long-term observation of social evolution, genetic drift, and psychological adaptation. Life is preserved, but only as a medium for experimentation. The data gathered serves specific post-war planning purposes. The Enclave envisions emerging from their own protected shelters to reclaim a devastated but malleable world. The Vault experiments will have provided them with comprehensive information about which governance structures maintain order, which biological modifications prove beneficial, which psychological conditioning techniques ensure compliance. They will rebuild not through trial and error, but with scientifically validated blueprints for human society. The selection of experimental parameters reveals the Enclave's priorities and prejudices. Many experiments test methods of maintaining hierarchy and preventing rebellion. Others explore the minimum resources necessary to keep populations productive but dependent. Still others investigate how to breed out undesirable traits while reinforcing characteristics the Enclave values. The experiments are not random cruelties, but targeted investigations into control mechanisms. The control vaults serve a particularly insidious purpose. By allowing some vaults to function as advertised, the Enclave ensures that post-war survivors will include pure genetic stock and stable social groups that can serve as breeding populations or administrative classes in their new order. These successful vaults will provide legitimacy to the Enclave's claims of having preserved humanity, hiding the sacrifices made in experimental vaults. The international dimension adds another layer to the betrayal. While American citizens undergo experimentation, the Enclave prepares for a post-war world where America, or rather their version of it, will dominate any survivors from other nations. The vaults will have produced not just data, but populations conditioned for specific roles in a global hierarchy. The project transforms American exceptionalism from patriotic rhetoric into biological and social engineering. Despite Vault-Tec's extensive security measures and the Enclave's pervasive influence, some individuals within the organization recognize the horror of what they're participating in and attempt to expose or sabotage the experiments. These whistleblowers and corporate spies, driven by conscience or competing interests, create an underground current of resistance within Vault-Tec's monolithic structure. Dr. Constance Wells, Vault-Tec's chief psychologist, undergoes a gradual transformation from enthusiastic participant to horrified observer. Her early papers on optimizing Vault population dynamics show genuine belief in the humanitarian mission. But as she gains access to higher classification levels and sees the true experimental protocols, her writings take on a different tone. Her personal journal, encrypted and hidden in multiple locations, documents her growing revulsion and eventual decision to act. Wells begins subtly sabotaging experiments where possible. She alters psychological profiles to save families from particularly cruel vaults. She introduces errors in experimental design that will allow residents more agency than intended. Her greatest success comes with Vault 81, where she manages to disable the disease dispersal system before her mysterious disappearance. Her fate remains unknown, but her actions save hundreds from planned suffering. Industrial espionage adds another dimension to the conspiracy. Competing corporations, foreign governments, and even criminal organizations recognize the value of Vault-Tec's research. Some seek to steal technology for their own shelter programs. Others hope to expose Vault-Tec's crimes for political or financial gain. A few simply want to profit from selling secrets to the highest bidder. The case of Marcus Holbrook illustrates the dangers faced by corporate spies. Posing as a mid-level engineer, Holbrook spends 3 years gathering evidence of experimental protocols for a Chinese intelligence operation. His handlers hope to use the information to discredit America internationally and potentially replicate the experiments for their own purposes. Holbrook's cover is eventually blown, leading to his arrest and interrogation. He dies in custody under suspicious circumstances, and the information he gathered never reaches its intended destination. Some whistleblowers operate from positions of genuine authority within Voltec. Regional Director Patricia Holt discovers the true nature of the vaults under her supervision and begins a careful campaign of documentation. She copies classified files, records conversations, and builds a comprehensive case against Voltec and the Enclave. Her plan to release everything to major media outlets is discovered just days before implementation. Holt's death in a car accident and the disappearance of her evidence serve as warnings to other potential whistleblowers. The most effective resistance often comes from lower-level employees who lack access to big pictures, but can affect individual outcomes. Construction workers who accidentally install safety overrides on experimental systems. Programmers who introduce bugs that will limit the control system's ability to enforce protocols. Supply clerks who ensure extra medicine reaches vaults designed for scarcity. These small acts of rebellion, multiplied across thousands of employees, create cracks in the experimental framework. The psychological mechanisms that allow Voltec employees to participate in mass experimentation reveal much about how ordinary people become complicit in extraordinary evil. The company's internal culture creates layers of justification and rationalization that allow workers to continue their duties despite growing evidence of the organization's true nature. These moral compromises, documented in personal records and psychological evaluations, show how corporate culture can normalize the unconscionable. The primary justification revolves around the greater good. Employees are constantly reminded that nuclear war is inevitable and that their work, however distressing, serves humanity's survival. "We're not playing God" becomes a common refrain. "We're saving the species." This utilitarian calculus allows workers to balance present suffering against future benefit, always tilting the scales toward continuation of the experiments. The possibility that war might be avoided and the experiments unnecessary is dismissed as naive optimism. Compartmentalization serves as another crucial psychological defense. Most employees know only their small piece of the larger puzzle. The engineer designing water recycling systems doesn't know they'll be deliberately sabotaged in certain vaults. The psychologist developing aptitude tests doesn't realize they're selecting subjects for specific experiments. This limitation of knowledge allows workers to focus on their technical challenges without confronting the full horror of their collective efforts. Corporate culture reinforces these mechanisms through careful manipulation. Vault-Tec's internal communications emphasize the patriotic nature of their work, the prestigious positions employees hold, and the historic importance of their mission. Company events celebrate milestones in vault construction without mentioning experimental protocols. Awards recognize technical achievement while ignoring ethical implications. The social pressure to conform, to be a team player, silences many who might otherwise object. Financial incentives provide powerful motivation to suppress moral qualms. Vault-Tec pays exceptionally well, offers comprehensive benefits, and provides job security in an increasingly unstable economy. Many employees have families depending on their income, mortgages that require steady paychecks, children who need college funds. The personal cost of principled resignation seems too high when weighed against these practical considerations. The gradual nature of moral compromise makes resistance more difficult. Employees don't suddenly discover they're working for an evil organization. Instead, they make small compromises that accumulate over time. First, they accept the need for some secrecy. Then they rationalize minor experimental protocols as necessary research. By the time they realize the full scope of Vault-Tec's plans, they're too invested, too complicit, too deep to extract themselves without destroying their lives. Some employees develop elaborate psychological frameworks to justify their continued participation. They tell themselves that someone else would do the work anyway, probably with less compassion. They focus on the control vaults that will genuinely save lives. They convince themselves that experimental subjects would likely die in nuclear war anyway, so the experiments at least give their deaths meaning. These mental gymnastics allow them to continue their work while maintaining some sense of moral identity. Among the 122 vaults constructed by Vault-Tec, 17 are designated as control vaults, facilities designed to function exactly as advertised to the public. These vaults serve multiple purposes in the grand experiment, providing baseline data for comparison with experimental vaults while also preserving pure populations for the Enclave's post-war plan. The stories of these control vaults reveal both the potential for genuine preservation and the cynical calculations behind their selection. Vault 3, nestled in the Mojave Desert, exemplifies the control vault concept. Its population, carefully selected for genetic diversity and psychological stability, enters their underground home believing they've won life's ultimate lottery. The vault functions flawlessly. Water recyclers fume efficiently, food stores remain ample, and the overseer governs with the benevolent authority outlined in Vault-Tec's public materials. For generations, Vault 3's residents live the life promised in the brochures, unaware that their normalcy makes them outliers in Vault-Tec's true mission. The daily routines in Vault 3 develop into comfortable patterns that persist across generations. Morning calisthenics in the atrium maintain physical fitness. Educational programs ensure children learn both practical skills and preserve pre-war knowledge. Evening social gatherings foster community bonds that prevent the psychological fractures plaguing other vaults. The vault's democracy functions as designed, with regular elections and peaceful transitions of power. It is in many ways the American dream preserved in miniature. Vault 8, located in Nevada, takes the control concept even further. Its systems are not merely functional but optimized, incorporating every improvement Vault-Tec engineers developed. The water purification achieves 99.9% efficiency. The food stores include greater variety and superior preservation. Most significantly, Vault 8 receives a Garden of Eden creation kit, JEC, technology capable of transforming radioactive wasteland into fertile soil. This vault is designed not just to preserve, but to reclaim. The residents of Vault 8 maintain a more structured society than Vault 3, with mandatory work assignments and strict scheduling that maximizes productivity. Yet this regimentation doesn't breed resentment, because it clearly serves the common good. Every resident understands their role in the greater mission of eventually returning to the surface and rebuilding. The Overseer and their council govern through consensus, their authority derived from competence rather than coercion. Vault 76, positioned in Virginia, represents the control vault concept taken to its logical conclusion. Designated as one of the first vaults to open after the radiation clears, its residents are selected from America's best and brightest. Engineers, scientists, doctors, and leaders fill its halls, creating a concentration of expertise designed to jumpstart reconstruction. The vault's systems are cutting edge, its stores extensive, and its population psychologically screened for resilience and cooperation. Life in Vault 76 carries an undercurrent of anticipation absent from other control vaults. Residents know their stay is temporary, that they're preparing for a return to the surface. Training programs simulate outdoor conditions. Classes teach radiation medicine and wasteland survival. The social structure emphasizes flexibility and adaptation, rather than rigid adherence to vault protocols. When the door finally opens, these residents will emerge not as refugees, but as reclaimers. The psychological experiments conducted in various vaults push the boundaries of human cruelty in the name of scientific inquiry. These vaults test not radiation resistance or resource management, but the limits of the human mind, how it breaks, how it adapts, and how it can be manipulated. The data gathered from these experiments provides the Enclave with tools for population control that surpass any pre-war dictatorship's dreams. Vault 11's experiment in democratic sacrifice represents psychological manipulation at its most diabolical. The Vault's computer demands one human sacrifice per year, threatening total system failure if the demand isn't met. But the true experiment lies not in the sacrifice itself, but in how the society chooses victims and rationalizes murder. Initial elections are somber affairs, with volunteers sacrificing themselves for the greater good. But as years pass and volunteers become scarce, the process corrupts into campaigns where unpopular residents are targeted for death. The psychological transformation of Vault 11's population unfolds in predictable yet horrifying stages. Political parties form around sacrifice selection methods. Some advocate for lotteries, others for merit-based selection of the least valuable members. Campaigns become vicious as candidates try to ensure their opponent's selection. The Vault develops elaborate justifications. The sacrificed are heroes, martyrs, necessary losses for the greater good. Children grow up accepting human sacrifice as normal, even noble. Vault 19 takes a different approach to psychological manipulation. The Vault is divided into two sectors, red and blue, with subtle environmental differences designed to create paranoia and conflict. Red sector receives subliminal messages suggesting blue sector is planning attacks. Blue sector's water contains trace chemicals that increase aggression and suspicion. The Overseer, aware of the experiment, plays both sides, fostering conflicts that test how far paranoia can push otherwise rational people. The progression in Vault 19 demonstrates how easily social cohesion dissolves under psychological pressure. Initial cooperation between sectors gives way to suspicion as residents notice behavioral differences they can't explain. Small incidents escalate through the lens of paranoia. A malfunction in red sector must be blue sabotage. An illness in blue sector must be red poisoning. The sectors develop increasingly elaborate security measures against threats that exist primarily in their manipulated minds. Vault 92 houses musicians and uses white noise experiments to test sound's psychological effects. Residents are told the background noise is designed to preserve perfect pitch and enhance musical ability. In reality, the frequencies are calculated to induce aggression and eventual psychosis. The experiment tests both the power of sonic manipulation and how artistic communities respond to members' deteriorating mental health. The tragedy of Vault 92 unfolds in movements like a demented symphony. First movement. Musicians notice enhanced creativity and attribute it to the vault's acoustic design. Second movement. Irritability increases, but artists rationalize it as creative temperament. Third movement. Violent incidents begin, explained away as passionate artistic disputes. Final movement. Complete breakdown as psychosis spreads, turning instruments into weapons and concert halls into battlegrounds. Vault 106 experiments with psychoactive drugs introduced through the air filtration system. Residents receive doses that alter perception, induce hallucinations, and eventually cause permanent psychological changes. The experiment tests how communities adapt to widespread mental alteration and whether new forms of society can emerge from chemically induced consciousness changes. The biological experiments conducted within certain vaults push beyond psychological manipulation into direct physical transformation of human subjects. These experiments, justified as preparing humanity for post-nuclear survival, instead create horrors that would have been unimaginable before the war. Each biological experiment represents a different approach to forced evolution, with results ranging from subtle genetic drift to monstrous transformation. Vault 12, located beneath Bakersfield, conducts perhaps the most straightforward yet cruel biological experiment. The vault door is designed to not seal properly, exposing residents to controlled doses of radiation. Vault-Tec scientists hypothesize that gradual exposure might trigger beneficial mutations, or at least create a population adapted to radioactive environments. The reality proves far more horrific than their models predicted. The transformation of Vault 12's population happens slowly enough for residents to document their own degradation. Early entries in personal journals complain of nausea and skin irritation, symptoms dismissed by Vault leadership as adaptation stress. As months pass, hair falls out, skin begins to slough off, and the true horror becomes undeniable. Yet the vault doors remain locked from outside, trapping residents in their role as unwitting test subjects. What emerges from Vault 12 is a new form of humanity, ghouls as they come to be known. Their skin hangs in tatters, their features melt and reform, but somehow they survive. More disturbing, they stop aging, their irradiated cells achieving a grotesque immortality. Some retain their intelligence and humanity despite their appearance. Others degenerate into feral creatures driven by base instincts. The experiment succeeds in creating radiation-adapted humans, but at a cost that redefines the meaning of survival. Vault 22 takes a different approach to biological modification. This vault experiments with genetically modified plants, designed to provide sustainable food sources in any environment. The scientists introduce spores that can grow in minimal light with extraordinary efficiency. What they don't anticipate is how these spores will interact with human biology when inevitably inhaled or consumed in concentration. The horror in Vault 22 unfolds like a garden of nightmares. Initially, the botanical experiments seem wondrously successful. Plants grow in abundance, providing fresh food that improves morale and health. But the spores spread beyond designated areas, taking root in ventilation systems, in clothing fibers, and eventually in human bodies. Residents begin experiencing strange symptoms: heightened plant growth from their skin, an inability to digest anything but vault-grown vegetation, and eventually, a merger of human and plant biology that creates shambling horrors. The final stages of Vault-22's experiment see the complete breakdown of the barrier between human and plant. Residents root themselves in growing medium, their mobility sacrificed for direct nutrient absorption. Others spread spores with every breath, transforming their vault mates into similar hybrids. The vault becomes a verdant tomb, lush with growth that was once human. The experiment in sustainable food production succeeds in creating a self-sustaining ecosystem, but one that no longer includes recognizable humans. Vault-87 represents the most extreme biological experimentation, utilizing a modified strain of the forced evolutionary virus, FEV. Located in the capital W wasteland, this vault receives subjects selected for physical prowess and genetic compatibility with FEV transformation. The stated goal is to create humans capable of surviving and thriving in the harshest post-nuclear conditions. The unstated goal involves creating a slave race of super soldiers for Enclave youth. The FEV experiments in Vault-87 begin with careful documentation and scientific protocols. Subjects are exposed to measured doses while strapped to tables in sterile medical bays. Sensors monitor every biological change, every genetic marker that shifts, every scream of agony as bodies transform. The scientists maintain clinical detachment, noting how muscle mass increases, how radiation resistance develops, how intelligence decreases in inverse proportion to physical enhancement. But the experiments quickly spiral beyond scientific control. The transformed subjects, now massive green-skinned mutants, possess strength that breaks containment. Their reduced intelligence doesn't mean stupidity. They retain enough cunning to organize, to plan, to seek revenge on their creators. The Vault's security systems, designed to keep radiation out, prove equally effective at keeping mutants in, transforming Vault-87 into a prison for both captives and transformed captives. The social experiments conducted within Vault-Tec facilities explore how human societies adapt, evolve, or collapse under specific engineered conditions. These vaults test everything from governance models to gender dynamics, from isolation effects to gambling-based economics. Each represents a carefully controlled study in social engineering, with residents unknowingly acting out scenarios designed to illuminate human nature's darkest corners. Vault-21, built beneath Las Vegas, experiments with a society where all conflicts are resolved through gambling. Every decision, from resource allocation to leadership selection, is determined by games of chance. The hypothesis suggests that random distribution might prove more fair than human judgment, that luck might create a more egalitarian society than merit or force. The reality proves both more complex and more successful than anticipated. Life in Vault-21 develops its own peculiar rhythm. Morning card games determine work assignments. Afternoon dice rolls allocate luxury rations. Evening roulette wheels spin to resolve disputes that might elsewhere lead to violence. Children learn probability before they learn to read, understanding odds as naturally as breathing. The society that emerges is neither utopia nor dystopia, but something uniquely adapted to its constraint. The gambling mechanism in Vault-21 creates unexpected social dynamics. Skilled players accumulate advantages, but can lose everything on a single bet, preventing permanent class stratification. The element of chance means anyone can win, fostering hope even among the least fortunate. Most surprisingly, the ritualized nature of gambling-based decisions reduces actual conflict. It's hard to hold grudges against dice or cards. The experiment succeeds in creating a stable, if peculiar, society. Vaults 68 and 69 represent paired experiments in extreme gender imbalance. Vault 68 houses 999 men and 1 woman. Vault 69 reverses the ratio, with 999 women and 1 man. These experiments test how human societies adapt to radical demographic imbalances, what new social structures emerge, and how gender roles transform under extreme conditions. The social evolution in Vault 68 follows depressing, predictable patterns. The soul woman becomes simultaneously revered and reviled, protected and possessed, a living symbol of what the Vault has lost. Power structures crystallize around access to her presence, with elaborate hierarchies determining who may speak with her, be near her, or hope for her favor. Violence between men increases exponentially as competition for an impossible prize drives them to extreme. Vault 69's development takes different but equally disturbing turns. The lone man faces pressures unimaginable in balanced societies, expected to father an entire generation while navigating the complex social dynamics of 1,000 women. Some view him as essential breeding stock, others as an unwelcome reminder of the world lost. The society that develops must confront questions of reproduction, child-rearing, and genetic diversity that challenge every pre-war assumption about family structures. Vault 101, located in the capital wasteland, experiments with total isolation. This vault is programmed never to open, testing how societies develop in complete separation from the outside world. Generations will be born, live, and die without ever seeing the sun, without knowing if anything exists beyond their metal walls. The experiment examines whether human societies can maintain coherence and purpose in absolute isolation. The psychological pressure of eternal confinement in Vault 101 manifests in various ways. Some residents develop elaborate fantasies about the outside world. Others deny its existence entirely, viewing the Vault as the entire universe. Religious movements arise that worship the overseer as a godlike figure who maintains their closed paradise. Educational systems must carefully balance truth about the pre-war world with the reality that students will never experience it. The technical experiments within certain vaults push the boundaries of human interaction with advanced technology. These facilities test everything from cryogenic preservation to virtual reality immersion, from advanced automation to human-machine integration. Each experiment explores different aspects of how technology might preserve, modify, or replace human existence in the post-nuclear world. Vault 111, positioned near Sanctuary Hills, conducts long-term cryogenic preservation experiments. Residents enter the vault believing they'll wait out the immediate post-war chaos in suspended animation, awakening to help rebuild. The reality is far more complex. The experiment tests not just the technology of preservation, but the psychological effects of temporal displacement and the social dynamics of staggered awakening schedules. The cryogenic process in Vault 111 works almost too well. Residents slip into frozen sleep, expecting to wake in months or years, unaware that centuries will pass. The Vault's systems maintain their bodies in perfect suspension while the world above transforms beyond recognition. But mechanical systems fail, power fluctuates, and not all pods maintain integrity. Some residents die in their sleep, ice crystals rupturing cells despite all precautions. Others wake prematurely to find themselves alone in a vault of frozen neighbors. The true horror of Vault 111 lies in the psychological torture of those who wake at wrong times. Imagine awakening to find your spouse still frozen, your child unreachable behind frosted glass, and no way to return to sleep or wake others. The isolation is absolute, surrounded by sleeping humanity, but utterly alone. Some early wakers leave messages for those who might follow. Others succumb to madness, their screams echoing through halls that only the dead can hear. Vault 112 takes technological integration to extreme through permanent virtual reality immersion. Residents enter tranquility lounges that promise to preserve their minds in perpetual comfort while their bodies age in suspended animation. The experiment tests whether human consciousness can successfully transfer to digital environments and what happens to identity when physical existence becomes secondary. The virtual reality of Vault 112 initially delivers on its promises. Residents find themselves in Tranquility Lane, an idyllic pre-war suburb where every day is perfect. Children play in streets free from atomic anxiety. Adults pursue fulfilling lives unencumbered by vault limitations. The simulation is so complete that many forget they're in a virtual world, their memories of entering the vault fading like dreams upon waking. But perfection breathes its own horror when controlled by a madman. Dr. Braun, the vault's overseer and architect of its systems, retains administrative control over the simulation. His godlike powers allow him to reshape reality at whim, tormenting residents for his amusement. He transforms paradise into nightmare and back again, testing how much psychological torture minds can endure when bodies feel no pain. Residents become playthings in an endless game where death offers no escape. Braun simply resets them to suffer again. Vault 88 represents a different approach to technical experimentation. Built as a testing ground for prototype Vault technologies, this facility experiments with everything from mood-enhancing lighting to subliminal messaging systems. The Vault serves as Voltec's research and development laboratory, where new control mechanisms are tested before implementation in other facilities. The modular nature of Vault 88 allows for constant reconfiguration as experiments progress. 1 month, residents navigate corridors lit by lights designed to suppress rebellion. The next, they exercise on equipment that monitors biometric data for signs of dissent. Food dispensers add mood-altering chemicals to rations. Entertainment systems test the boundaries of subliminal programming. Every aspect of daily life becomes an experiment in control. Not every vault in Vault-Tec's grand experiment proceeds according to plan. Some fail due to technical malfunctions, others to successful resident rebellion, and still others to experimental parameters that spiral beyond anticipated extremes. These failed vaults serve as monuments to corporate hubris and human resilience, their empty halls telling stories of experiments that consumed their subjects, or subjects who overcame their experimenters. Vault 17 was designed to test extreme overcrowding, with a population 5 times larger than standard vault capacity. The experiments sought to understand how humans adapt to severe space limitations and resource scarcity. For the first few years, residents developed ingenious solutions: hot bunking schedules, vertical farming in corridors, and complex social hierarchies that managed conflict through rigid structure. But the pressure proved unsustainable. The breakdown in Vault 17 occurred gradually, then suddenly. Small territorial disputes escalated as personal space disappeared entirely. The air recycling systems pushed beyond capacity couldn't prevent carbon dioxide buildup that made residents increasingly aggressive. When the food processors finally failed under constant use, the social order collapsed entirely. The Vault's final logs record descent into tribalism and cannibalism before all communications ceased. When finally discovered, Vault 17 contained only bones and scratched tallies on walls marking territory in a war where everyone lost. Vault 42 failed for entirely different reasons. This vault received no light bulbs above 40 watts, testing how humans adapt to perpetual dim lighting. The experiment seemed minor compared to others, almost quaint in its simplicity, but the psychological effects of eternal twilight proved more severe than anticipated. Residents developed various vision disorders, but more critically, the lack of proper lighting triggered widespread depression and vitamin D deficiency. The unique horror of Vault 4242 was its slow dissolution. Residents didn't die dramatically but simply faded. Suicide rates climbed steadily. Birth rates plummeted as depression killed desire. The dim lighting made maintenance difficult, leading to cascading system failures. The vault didn't end in violence or starvation, but in a quiet surrender to darkness. The last overseer's journal contains increasingly illegible entries as even writing became too difficult in the gloom. Vault 53 experienced repeated equipment failures by design, testing human adaptability and repair ingenuity. Every few months, critical systems would malfunction: water purifiers, air recyclers, food processors. The breakdowns were repairable but required increasingly creative solutions as spare parts dwindled. The experiment aimed to foster innovation and technical expertise in the population. Initially, Vault 53's residents rose to the challenge. They developed remarkable repair techniques, created replacement parts from unlikely materials, and maintained a functioning vault through sheer determination. A culture of technical excellence emerged, with children learning engineering before arithmetic, but the constant stress of impending system failure took its toll. Residents became obsessed with maintenance, checking and rechecking systems that might fail at any moment. The end of Vault 53 came not from technical failure, but from social breakdown caused by technical success. Different groups developed competing repair philosophies that hardened into religious doctrine. The preservers insisted on maintaining original systems at all costs. The innovators pushed for complete replacement with improved designs. The fatalists believed breakdowns were divine tests not to be circumvented. When civil war erupted over repair methodology, the vault's perfectly maintained systems ran automatically while residents killed each other in the halls. As the year 2077 dawns, the world teeters on a precipice that everyone can see but no one can avoid. The resource wars have depleted not just oil and uranium but hope itself. Nations circle each other like starving wolves, each knowing that the first to show weakness will be devoured, each planning to strike before being struck. In this atmosphere of inevitable catastrophe, Voltec works with desperate efficiency to complete final preparations. Vault-Tec. The news broadcasts of early 2077 maintain a veneer of normalcy that fools no one. Smiling anchors report on diplomatic initiatives that everyone knows will fail. They describe military exercises that are clearly preparation for war. They assure viewers that America remains strong while showing footage of food riots in Denver, water shortages in California, and brownouts across the eastern seaboard. The juxtaposition between cheerful delivery and apocalyptic content creates a surreal viewing experience. At Voltec headquarters, the executive floors buzz with activity that goes beyond normal corporate urgency. Shredders run constantly, destroying documents that might prove incriminating if the worst doesn't happen, or valuable if it does. Key personnel receive discreet relocations to regional offices that happen to be near vault entrances. Family members of important executives take extended vacations to remote locations that coincidentally house control vaults. The pace of vault completion accelerates beyond all reasonable safety margins. Construction crews work 24-hour shifts, stimulants distributed freely to maintain productivity. Quality control standards quietly relax as deadline pressures mount. Vaults that should take 6 months to finish are declared operational in 6 weeks. The motto becomes functional enough rather than built to last centuries. Some project managers protest, but they're quickly replaced by those willing to certify anything with 4 walls and a door. International incidents cascade with increasing frequency. Chinese submarines are detected in American waters. American bombers probe Chinese airspace. Both nations claim defensive necessity while pursuing offensive positioning. The Alaska Front, already a meat grinder of conventional warfare, sees deployment of increasingly desperate weapons. Reports of biological agents, chemical weapons, and tactical nuclear devices are denied by both sides with decreasing conviction. Voltec's intelligence division, staffed by former military and intelligence personnel, provides executives with assessments more honest than any public broadcast. Their projections show not if, but when complex algorithms calculating probable flashpoints, likely escalation patterns, and survival percentages. The most optimistic scenarios give the world months. The most realistic measure remaining peace in weeks. The most pessimistic suggest days. The final months before the bombs see Vault-Tec shifting from construction to activation mode. Vaults that have stood empty for years suddenly bustle with activity as systems come online and supplies arrive in convoys of unmarked trucks. The transformation from construction site to survival shelter happens with practiced efficiency, each vault following activation protocols refined through dozens of implementations. Supply deliveries take on almost comical proportions as Vault-Tec attempts to stock centuries' worth of necessities in weeks. Truck convoys arrive at all hours, drivers working on minimal sleep to meet impossible deadlines. Food supplies come in industrial quantities, tons of preserved meals, seeds for hydroponics, vitamin supplements to last generations. Medical supplies include everything from bandages to surgical equipment, antibiotics to psychiatric medications, birth control to fertility treatments. The human element of vault preparation proves most complex. Vault personnel, overseers, security chiefs, medical staff, maintenance crews, receive final training that emphasizes their roles in the experiments they don't know they're part of. Overseers of experimental vaults receive sealed orders to be opened at specific intervals. Security personnel drill on crowd control techniques they're told are for emergency situations, but are actually for maintaining experimental protocol. Technical systems undergo final testing with mixed results. Water recyclers run through 1,000-hour stress tests, most passing but some showing concerning fluctuations. Air filtration systems process everything from cigarette smoke to simulated nerve agents. Power plants ramp up to full capacity, fusion reactors humming with barely contained energy. Every successful test is celebrated, every failure hastily repaired or quietly documented for post-activation maintenance. The psychological preparation of vault populations receives special attention in these final months. Orientation programs run constantly, teaching selected families about vault living through cheerful films and hands-on demonstrations. Children attend vault venture camps where they learn to love their future underground homes through games and activities. Adults participate in community-building exercises designed to create social bonds that will help maintain order during the transition period. But beneath the organized preparation runs an undercurrent of barely controlled panic. Vault-Tec employees whisper about which vaults to avoid, which to aim for. Black markets emerge for vault assignments, with desperate families trading everything they own for a chance at survival. Some Vault-Tec workers smuggle friends and family into vaults, risking execution to save loved ones. Others alter records to keep people out of vaults they know are designed for suffering. October 23rd, 2077, dawns like any other day, which makes its ending all the more horrific. Across America, people wake to autumn sunshine, prepare breakfast, and plan weekends they will never see. At Vault-Tec facilities, skeleton crews maintain normal operations, most employees already relocated to Vault sites or mysterious absences. Those who remain perform final tasks with the mechanical precision of those who know their time is measured in hours. The morning shift at Vault-Tec headquarters arrives to find the executive floors already empty, computers wiped, and safes standing open. The receptionist, a young woman named Mary who's worked there only 6 months, dutifully answers phones and directs calls to extensions that no longer connect. She doesn't know that her name appears on no Vault list, that her employer has already written her off as acceptable losses. She smiles and offers coffee to visitors who will be ash by lunchtime. In vaults across the nation, different dramas unfold. Some overseers received warning through Enclave channels and began admitting residents during the night. Families arrive with hastily packed belongings, children clutching favorite toys, adults trying to mask their terror. The check-in process proceeds with eerie efficiency. Verify identification, assign quarters, distribute vault suits, begin orientation. The massive gear doors remain open, waiting for stragglers or the sirens, whichever comes first. Other vaults maintain normal morning routines, their overseers either uninformed or maintaining operational security. Maintenance crews perform standard checks. Kitchen staff prepare for lunch rushes that will never come. Security guards patrol empty halls, their footsteps echoing in spaces built for hundreds but currently holding dozens. These vaults will scramble when the sirens sound, turning orderly admittance into desperate chaos. At Vault-Tec construction sites, workers arrive to find management absent and gates locked. Some break in to continue work, driven by duty, or simply not knowing what else to do. Others go home to families, sensing that something has fundamentally changed. A few head directly to vaults, where they've secretly added their names to resident lists. The massive machinery of vault construction grinds to a halt, projects frozen at various stages of completion. The morning progresses with agonizing normalcy. Radio stations play popular songs, television broadcasts show cooking segments and celebrity interviews. Traffic flows on highways. Children attend schools. The machinery of civilization continues its motion, even as those who know the truth hold their breath, waiting for the flash that will end everything. In the final hours before nuclear devastation, Vault-Tec's communication networks carry a strange mixture of routine business and apocalyptic preparation. The company's internal channels, encrypted and redundant, pulse with final instructions, desperate queries, and farewell messages that will never receive responses. These last communications, preserved in Vault databases and recovered terminals, provide glimpses into how a corporation faces its own successful prediction of doom. The Executive Priority Channel carries terse confirmations: Phoenix Nest secured, California Division dark, Eastern Border counted. These coded messages confirm that key personnel have reached designated shelters, that critical operations have shut down, that the continuity of corporate structure will survive even if the corporation itself burns. Each message represents lives saved and lives abandoned, decisions made in boardrooms about who deserves survival. Regional offices flood headquarters with increasingly panicked requests for guidance. The Cleveland office reports early warning indicators and asks whether to activate local vaults. The Dallas division seeks clarification on experimental protocols, worried about implementing procedures they don't fully understand. The Miami branch pleads for additional transportation to move personnel to safety. Most queries go unanswered, the recipients already sealed behind vault doors or en route to personal shelters. Technical channels carry more pragmatic communications. Engineers transmit final system updates, patches for Vault control software, and workarounds for known issues. One senior technician broadcasts detailed instructions for manually cycling fusion reactors, knowledge that might save vaults whose automated systems fail. Another uploads schematics for improvised water purification, a last gift to whoever might need it. These final acts of professional duty continue, even as their authors prepare for death or shelter. Personal messages increasingly contaminate official channels as discipline breaks down. Employees use company networks to send farewells to family members, love letters to partners in distant vaults, and bitter recriminations to executives who excluded them from survival lists. One programmer embeds a confession in Vault control code, detailing his role in designing experimental protocols and begging forgiveness from future generations who will suffer for his work. The most chilling communications come from Vault-Tec's intelligence division, which maintains professional detachment even as missiles arc through the sky. They report launch detections with precise timestamps, calculate impact projections with cold accuracy, and estimate casualty figures in the millions with the same tone used for quarterly earnings. Their final transmission, logged at 9:47 a.m. Eastern Time, simply states, Scenario 7 Alpha confirmed, implementing preservation protocol, Vault-Tec signing off. At 9:42 a.m. Eastern Time, October 23, 2077, the first missiles breach American airspace. The sirens that everyone hoped never to hear begin their mournful wail across cities and towns. The Great War, anticipated for decades and prepared for by organizations like Vault-Tec, finally arrives with all the sudden horror of long-expected catastrophe. In the 2 hours that follow, human civilization effectively ends, validating every dire prediction and surpassing every nightmare scenario. The response at vault sites varies dramatically based on preparation and warning. Vaults with alert overseers begin admittance procedures immediately, processing terrified families with practiced efficiency. Lines form at vault entrances as people clutch admission papers, children crying, adults maintaining fragile calm. Security teams check names against lists, turning away those who beg and plead and offer everything they own for spaces that don't exist. The lucky ones file inside, the unlucky face atomic fire under autumn sky. At Vault 111, families from Sanctuary Hills arrive dressed for a normal Saturday, having grabbed only what the evacuation officer told them to bring. They joke nervously about missing the World Series game, about whether their roasts will burn in abandoned ovens. The Vault staff, knowing about the cryogenic experiments but not their full scope, process residents with professional smiles that don't reach their eyes. Just a decontamination procedure, they say, as residents enter pods that will freeze them for centuries. Vault 12's door mechanisms engage but deliberately fail to seal as designed. Residents huddle inside, believing themselves safe, unaware that radiation seeps through carefully calibrated gaps. They organize, assign duties, and plan for long-term survival while their bodies already begin the slow transformation that will birth a new species. Children play in common areas as their cells mutate, their laughter echoing through halls that will soon know only screams. The experimental vaults each begin their grim purposes as mushroom clouds bloom on horizons. Vault 11's first overseer reads sealed instructions about required sacrifices with shaking hands. Vault 19's systems begin broadcasting their divisive subliminal messages to residents who think they've found unity in survival. Vault 87's FEV chambers stand ready for their first test subjects, who currently celebrate their survival with rationed champagne. For Vault-Tec executives, sealed in their control vaults and private shelters, the moment brings grim satisfaction mixed with very human terror. Their predictions proved correct, their preparations justified, their experiments begun. But they too are now rats in a larger maze, trapped underground while the world burns above. They monitor vault statuses on terminals, watching green lights that indicate successful sealing, red lights that show failures, and yellow lights marking vaults whose purposes they know too well. The atomic fire that consumed the world on October 23, 2077, marked not the end of Vault-Tec's influence, but its twisted transformation into something beyond corporate entity. As the dust settles and radiation levels slowly decrease over subsequent decades, the vaults scattered across America become time capsules, tombs, and laboratories whose influence shapes the emerging wasteland in ways their creators both intended and never imagined. The physical legacy of Vault-Tec dominates the post-war landscape. Their indestructible vault doors become landmarks for wanderers navigating the trackless waste. Some stand open, marking vaults whose experiments ended in tragedy or triumph. Others remain sealed, their massive gears rusted in place, hiding mysteries that draw scavengers and scholars alike. The distinctive gear symbol, once a corporate logo promising safety, evolves into a wasteland hieroglyph meaning danger, opportunity, or salvation, depending on context. But Vault-Tec's influence extends far beyond physical structures. The social experiments conducted within their vaults release new forms of human society into the wasteland. Vault 21's gambling-based culture spreads to nearby settlements, creating entire communities where chance determines fate. Survivors from Vault 15's deliberately diverse population carry 4 distinct cultural traditions that flower into separate tribes, each claiming authentic Vault heritage while developing in radically different directions. The technological legacy proves equally complex. Vault-Tec's advanced systems, from water purification to power generation, become the basis for wasteland reconstruction. Communities fortunate enough to occupy intact vaults or scavenge functional components leap ahead of their neighbors. The GGCK units included in control vaults transform irradiated wasteland into gardens of Eden, creating oases that become centers of new civilizations. Even failed vaults contribute, their broken systems providing spare parts and technical knowledge to clever scavengers. The psychological impact of Vault-Tec's legacy cannot be overstated. Stories of Vault experiments spread through trader caravans and wanderer tales, becoming mythology for a world trying to understand its own destruction. The Vault Dweller, emerging from Vault 13 to save their home, becomes a legendary figure whose actions ripple across the wasteland. Other Vault emergencies create their own legends, the sole survivor of Vault 111 seeking their stolen child, the former residents of Vault 76 rebuilding Appalachia, each story adding to the complex mythology surrounding Vault-Tec's creations. The corporate structure of Vault-Tec, designed for continuity through catastrophe, manifests in unexpected ways. Automated systems continue following pre-war programming, maintaining vaults whose residents died centuries ago. Emergency broadcasts repeat endlessly on radio frequencies, cheerful voices inviting people to vaults that have become tombs. Computer terminals in abandoned offices still display quarterly projections for a fiscal year that will never come, their screens casting green light on bones in executive chairs. 2 centuries after the bombs fell, Vault-Tec technology continues to function with reliability that seems almost supernatural in a world of rust and ruin. This endurance was not accidental, but the result of obsessive over-engineering and redundancy that reflected the corporation's deepest purpose. Every system was built not just to survive nuclear war, but to operate for generations without external support, creating technological oases in a world reverted to pre-industrial conditions. The water recycling systems exemplify this endurance. In functioning vaults, these miraculous machines continue to process every drop of moisture, achieving efficiency rates that pre-war engineers would have deemed impossible. The technology spreads slowly through the wasteland as vault dwellers emerge or scavengers learn to replicate systems. Settlements that manage to install even partial vault water recyclers find their survival chances dramatically improved, leading to conflicts over control of this life-giving technology. Power generation systems showcase similar resilience. Vault fusion reactors, designed to run for centuries on minimal fuel, continue providing electricity to both inhabited and empty vaults. Some wasteland communities risk everything to tap into these power sources, running jury-rigged cables to bring light to settlements that have known only darkness. The technical knowledge required to maintain these reactors becomes a carefully guarded secret among emerging techno-priest castes who trace their knowledge back to Vault technical manuals. The medical technology preserved in vaults revolutionizes wasteland healthcare. Autodocs, those miraculous surgical machines, can perform operations beyond the skill of any human doctor. Pharmaceutical synthesizers produce medications from base chemicals, creating antibiotics and painkillers in a world where infection means death. Even simple vault medical supplies, sterile bandages, surgical instruments, diagnostic equipment, represent treasures worth killing for in the harsh wasteland economy. Computing systems present a more complex legacy. Vault-Tec's terminals and mainframes continue to function, their robust constructions surviving where more delicate electronics failed, but their true value lies in the data they contain. Technical manuals, historical records, and experimental logs that provide windows into the pre-war world. Some terminals hold darker secrets, containing full records of Vault experiments that reveal the depths of Vault-Tec's betrayal to those who can decode their encrypted files. The preservation of knowledge through educational systems creates long-term impacts on wasteland development. Vaults with intact educational programs produce generations of literate, technically competent residents who emerge to find themselves intellectual giants in a world of ignorance. These vault-educated individuals become leaders, teachers, and innovators who slowly raise the wasteland's technological baseline. Their knowledge, filtered through Vault curricula designed by Vault-Tec, carries both tremendous value and subtle biases that shape emerging societies. The emergence of Vault dwellers into the post-war world creates cultural shockwaves that ripple through wasteland society for generations. Each opening Vault door represents not just new residents, but new ideas, preserved technologies, and social structures that challenge or complement existing wasteland adaptations. The stories of these emergences, spread by traders and travelers, become the foundation myths of new communities and cautionary tales for old ones. The Vault 13 dwellers' emergence in year 2161 establishes the archetypal pattern. Sent to find a replacement water chip, this individual encounters a wasteland that defies every Vault education assumption. The ordered, controlled environment of Vault life provides poor preparation for the chaos, violence, and moral ambiguity of the outside world. Yet Vault training in technology, medicine, and pre-war knowledge proves invaluable for navigating wasteland challenges. The dweller's journey becomes a template for future emergencies. Initial shock, gradual adaptation, and eventual transformation into something neither Vault Dweller nor Wastelander. Different vaults produce different types of emergent populations. Control Vault residents emerge healthy, educated, and hopelessly naive about wasteland realities. They often fall victim to raiders, slavers, or simple environmental hazards before learning harsh survival lessons. Those who survive become valuable additions to wasteland communities, bringing technical knowledge and genetic diversity to populations suffering from generations of radiation exposure. Experimental Vault survivors emerge shaped by their specific ordeals. Vault 12's ghoul population faces immediate hostility from smooth-skinned communities who see only monsters. Vault 21's residents bring gambling expertise that makes them natural traders and negotiators. Vault 101's isolated population struggles with agoraphobia and social interaction after generations of confinement. Each group must find its place in a world that has no predetermined slot for their particular adaptations. The cultural exchange between Vault Dwellers and Wastelanders flows both directions. Vault Dwellers learn practical survival skills, wasteland politics, and the flexibility needed to thrive in chaos. Wastelanders gain access to preserved knowledge, advanced technology, and organizational structures that can transform tribal societies. Marriages between Vault Dwellers and Wastelanders produce children who embody this cultural fusion, equally comfortable with Pip-Boys and Brahmin herding. Some Vault emergences end in tragedy. Populations shaped by generations of experimental conditioning prove unable to adapt to freedom. Vault 11's survivors, traumatized by their democratic sacrifice system, cannot form stable communities without the structure of mandated murder. Vault 92's musically inclined but psychologically damaged residents create beautiful but disturbing art before succumbing to madness. These failures serve as warnings about the long-term consequences of social engineering. Across the wasteland's varied regions, Voltec's legacy takes on different meanings, shaped by local experiences, successful or failed vaults, and the cultural evolution of survivor communities. These regional variations in how Vault-Tec is remembered and mythologized reveal much about how different areas have processed the trauma of nuclear war and corporate betrayal. In the capital wasteland, where numerous vaults dot the landscape, Vault-Tec is remembered with a mixture of reverence and revulsion. The successful emergence of Vault 101's lone wanderer, who activates Project Purity and brings clean water to the region, creates positive associations with Vault Origins, but the horror stories from Vault 87's Super Mutant Factory and Vault 92's Musician Massacre balance these positives. Local mythology paints Voltec as a two-faced god, capable of preservation and perversion in equal measure. The Mojave Desert develops a more pragmatic view of Voltec's legacy. Vault 21's successful gambling society influences New Vegas culture, making Vault-Tec synonymous with calculated risk and games of chance. The stripped remains of Vault 11 become a pilgrimage site for those seeking to understand the depths of human depravity and sacrifice. Mr. House's connections to Vault-Tec through Robco create conspiracy theories about continuing corporate influence that may be more accurate than anyone realizes. In the Commonwealth, Vault-Tec's reputation intertwines with fears about the Institute and synthetic humans. Vault 111's cryogenic preservation and the sole survivor's emergence feed into paranoia about who might be pre-war infiltrators. Vault 81's successful community, one of the few experimental vaults whose sabotage systems saved its residents, provides a counterpoint suggesting that even Vault-Tec's evil could be subverted by human decency. The West Coast, birthplace of Vault-Tec and site of their headquarters, maintains the most complex relationship with their legacy. The Master's use of Vault populations for super mutant conversion makes Vaults symbols of vulnerability rather than safety. Yet the success of Vault Dwellers in founding the NCR and other stable communities demonstrates the positive potential of preserved pre-war knowledge. Voltec becomes a cautionary tale about corporate power, while simultaneously being credited with preserving the seeds of civilization. Different cultures develop unique mythologies around Voltec. Tribal communities often incorporate Vault imagery into religious iconography, with the gear-shaped door becoming a symbol of transformation or testing. More technologically advanced settlements treat Vault-Tec as a case study in corporate malfeasance, using their example to justify strict regulation of emerging post-war companies. Raider groups pervert Vault-Tec imagery for intimidation, painting gear symbols on armor to invoke the corporation's reputation for callous experimentation. 2 centuries after Vault-Tec's corporate structure dissolved in atomic fire, physical remnants of their vast enterprise litter the wasteland like technological breadcrumbs, leading back to humanity's darkest moment. These artifacts range from monumental vaults to mundane office supplies, each carrying weight beyond its functional value as symbols of the world that was and warnings about the world that might be again. The vaults themselves stand as the most obvious remnants, their massive structures defying time and destruction. Even failed vaults serve purposes their designers never intended. Vault 22, overgrown with mutant plants, becomes a source of botanical samples that help restart agriculture. Vault 34's flooded halls yield waterlogged but functional weapons to those brave enough to navigate its radioactive depths. Empty vaults transform into settlements, raider bases, or monster lairs, their pre-war systems repurposed for post-war survival. Vault-Tec's corporate facilities, when discovered, proved to be treasure troves of information and technology. Regional headquarters yield terminals containing employee records, experimental data, and correspondence that illuminates the corporation's true nature. Marketing materials found in these ruins, colorful posters promising underground paradise, cheerful films about vault life, employee handbooks detailing corporate culture, provide bitter irony to those who know how the promises turned out. Personal artifacts carry unexpected emotional weight. Vault suits, those iconic blue and yellow garments, become highly valued for their durability and radiation resistance. Pip-Boys, the wrist-mount computers given to Vault Dwellers, represent the pinnacle of personal computing technology and command extreme prices in wasteland markets. Even simple items, like Vault-Tec branded lunchboxes or promotional materials, become collector's items, prized for their connection to the old world. Documentation survives in various forms, each revealing different aspects of Vault-Tec's operations. Technical manuals allow wasteland mechanics to maintain Vault systems or adapt them for new purposes. Experimental logs, when decoded, reveal the full horror of what transpired in specific vaults. Personal journals of Vault-Tec employees provide human perspectives on participating in mass deception. These documents become the basis for wasteland education, historical research, and sometimes dangerous knowledge that various factions seek to control. The technological remnants of Vault-Tec extend beyond obvious machinery. Their innovations in food preservation allowed pre-war packaged goods to remain edible centuries later. Their material science created alloys that resist corrosion in ways that post-war smiths struggle to replicate. Even their corporate organizational methods, preserved in training materials and procedure manuals, influence how successful wasteland communities structure themselves. As our long journey through Vault-Tec's history draws toward its close, we find ourselves contemplating a legacy as complex as the gear-shaped doors that symbolize their promise. Vault-Tec stands as perhaps history's greatest paradox, an organization that saved humanity while betraying it, that preserved civilization while experimenting on it, that built monuments to survival that became laboratories of suffering. Understanding their full impact requires holding contradictory truths in mind simultaneously, accepting that salvation and damnation can wear the same corporate logo. The preservation of human life through Vault technology cannot be dismissed, despite the horrors that accompanied it. Thousands survived nuclear fire because Vault-Tec built shelters capable of withstanding atomic devastation. Generations were born, lived, and maintained human culture in underground sanctuaries while the surface burned and healed. Without the vaults, humanity might have faced extinction or devolution into pure barbarism. The control vaults at least fulfilled their advertised purpose of preservation, even if they were statistical minorities in a vast experimental matrix. Yet this preservation came at costs that challenge moral calculation. For every vault that functioned as promised, others subjected residents to tortures that mock the very concept of salvation. Families entered shelters believing they had won survival's lottery, only to discover they had volunteered for experiments in human suffering. Children grew up in environments designed to break their minds, shape their bodies, or test their society's breaking points. The betrayal of trust operates on a scale that defies comprehension. The technological legacy proves equally double-edged. Vault-Tec's innovations in closed-system living, resource recycling, and long-term preservation advance human knowledge in ways that benefit post-war reconstruction. Their medical technology saves lives daily across the wasteland. Their water purification systems transform radioactive waste into drinkable water. Their preserved knowledge allows emerging civilizations to skip centuries of redevelopment. Yet this same innovative spirit created the frameworks for unprecedented human experimentation. Perhaps most significantly, Vault-Tec's legacy lies in the lessons their story teaches about power, trust, and the dangers of unchecked authority. Their transformation from protective corporation to experimental overlord demonstrates how noble intentions can be corrupted by secrecy and lack of accountability. Their ability to convince an entire nation to fund its own exploitation reveals the power of fear and marketing to override critical thinking. Their experiments show the depths to which humans can sink when they view other humans as data points rather than people. The mythological weight of Vault-Tec in wasteland culture ensures their influence will persist for generations. They have become a cautionary tale told around campfires, a bogeyman invoked to warn against trusting too easily, a symbol of pre-war hubris that brought about its own destruction. Yet they also represent human ingenuity, the drive to survive against impossible odds, and the capacity to preserve knowledge through catastrophe. Like all complex legacies, theirs resists simple categorization as good or evil. As we prepare to conclude our exploration of Vault-Tec's vast and troubling history, let your mind wander through the images we've shared on this long journey together. Picture those first corporate meetings where ambitious men dreamed of profits from protection, unaware they were setting in motion events that would transform human history. See the construction sites where thousands labored to build shelters, some knowing the true purposes, most believing they served humanity's salvation. Think of the families who lined up at vault entrances on that terrible October morning, clutching their children and their hopes, trusting in the promise of corporate protection. Some found exactly what they were promised: safety, community, and preservation through the nuclear storm. Others discovered that they had traded one form of death for another, slower and more cruel. All became part of an experiment whose scope exceeded even its architect's comprehension. Consider the Vault Dwellers who emerged decades or centuries later, blinking in sunlight their ancestors had abandoned, carrying preserved knowledge into a transformed world. Each emergence created ripples of change, spreading technology, ideas, and genetic diversity into the wasteland's emerging ecosystem. Some brought hope and healing. Others carried the traumas of their experimental ordeals. All contributed to the slow reconstruction of human civilization. The empty vaults standing across the wastelands serve as monuments to human ambition and failure. Their massive doors, frozen open or sealed forever, mark places where stories ended and began. In their darkened halls, terminals still glow with data about experiments completed or abandoned. Water still drips through recycling systems that will run until entropy finally claims them. These technological tombs wait patiently for explorers, scavengers, or new residents to give them purpose again. But perhaps the most important legacy lies not in the physical remnants, but in the questions Vault-Tec's story raises. How do we balance survival with morality? When does the greater good become an excuse for individual evil? What price is too high for preservation? These questions echo through the wasteland and into our own contemplation, reminding us that the capacity for both preservation and betrayal lies within human nature itself. And now, dear listener, as our tale of Voltec reaches its end, let the weight of history settle gently upon you like a warm blanket. You've traveled far tonight, through decades of ambition and centuries of consequence, through gleaming pre-war laboratories and rusted post-war ruins. You've witnessed humanity at its most ingenious and most cruel, its most hopeful and most betrayed. Rest now, knowing the story has been told, the warnings given, the lessons preserved. Let your breathing slow to match the steady rhythm of a vault's air recycling system, that constant mechanical heartbeat that sustained life through the long darkness. Feel yourself sinking deeper into comfort, safe from the radiations and experiments that troubled our narrative. You are here, now, in this moment of peace, far from the vaults and their troubled legacy. The gear-shaped doors of sleep stand open before you, inviting you into restful dreams rather than corporate nightmares. Picture yourself in the most peaceful of vaults, one that exists only in imagination, where the water runs clean and cool, where the lights dim naturally with circadian rhythms, where no experiments trouble the residents' sleep. The overseer is kind and wise, the systems function perfectly, and the great door stands ready to open whenever the residents choose to greet a healed world. This is the vault that should have been, the promise kept rather than betrayed. As you drift towards sleep, let the complexities of Voltec's legacy fade into simple images. See the desert stars through the eyes of an emerging vault dweller, brilliant beyond anything underground lighting could simulate. Hear the first birds they encounter, whose songs no vault recording could truly capture. Feel the wind they experience, carrying sense of sage and possibility rather than recycled air. These moments of wonder balance all the darkness we've explored. Tomorrow you'll wake to a world that learned from Vault-Tec's mistakes, that builds shelters of trust rather than betrayal, that preserves through transparency rather than deception. But tonight, rest in the knowledge that survival found a way, that humanity endured both atomic fire and corporate manipulation to emerge scarred but unbroken. The vaults sleep in their darkness, their experiments ended, their lessons learned, their power over human fate finally exhausted. Sleep now, and dream not of vaults, but of open skies. Dream not of experiments, but of freedom. Dream not of corporate promises, but of human resilience. Let Vault-Tec's long shadow pass over you and fade into history where it belongs. You are safe, you are valued, not as data, but as a person. And your rest is your own, rather than monitored for experimental purposes. The story is told, The vaults are sealed or opened according to their fates. The wasteland blooms slowly with new life built on old foundations. And you, having witnessed it all, can rest knowing that knowledge of the past helps build a better future. Sleep peacefully, dream gently, and wake refreshed to a world where the only vaults that matter are the ones we build in our hearts to preserve what truly matters. Good night, wanderer. May your dreams be free of experiments and full of wonder. The tale of Vault-Tec is ended, but your story continues with tomorrow's dawn. Rest well, rest deeply, and let the gentle darkness carry you to morning. Sleep now and be at peace.